Designing Dishes is going to show you how to make fondant roses.
Well, in this little piece of saran wrap, we have a small piece of the fondant that we made on a separate video. So if you're unfamiliar with how to make fondant, watch that video. Now we're going to add some food coloring to it. We don't want white roses, that's for sure, and today we're making roses, so we're going to put some pink food coloring, and we're using a paste type food coloring. Please do not use the food coloring that comes in the liquid form that you buy at the grocery store. That will not color your fondant evenly. You won't get a real nice true color on it. And so you need to make sure you buy the paste food coloring. You can find that at any of the craft stores. And it's going to take just a minute or two. Just simply knead that food coloring in. And be prepared to get some color on your fingers, because it's just going to happen. If you're real concerned about that, you could wear some plastic gloves to prevent your fingers from getting colored. We are almost through kneading this color in. Now notice how the color is really nice and bright. And if you noticed how much we put in there, it was just whatever clung to one tiny little dip of the toothpick. So be very, very sparing with this color because it goes a long, long way.
These are the roses we're going to be making today. Hot pink, great color for our cupcakes. I store them in the the tin cupcake holder, the mini one, and this is a good way to keep them so they don't touch each other. Let's start making our rose. To begin with, we're going to make the bud. Form your hands around a walnut size piece of fondant and use your thumbs to help form that bud. Bring the bottom part around and make the small bud. You can see that the top part of the bud is a little thinner than the base. I'm going to take a second piece of fondant, this time about the size of a quarter. Dip it in a little bit of cornstarch, which helps to firm up the petal and the rose. The bottom part, that is the base, again is a little bit thicker, and I use my thumb and finger on the outer edge of the petal to make it a little thinner so that it looks like a real rose petal. Then I take it around the bud and form around the edge, pinching the top of it as I go around. I'm going to do this again. A little bit of cornstarch, firming it up, making the petal thinner at the top of the petal, thicker at the base, and go on around. If you want to make it a little thinner, pinch as it goes around. And one more petal. Cornstarch helps to firm. Great idea. I found the cornstarch works much better than just confectioner's sugar. Form the petal. Thicker at the base, thinner at the top. Push it out, and we've got a gorgeous rose.
For those of you who really feel that making these roses is too difficult, but you want the roses, you can buy them. The red ones are previously made and purchased from a craft store. They were about 80 cents a piece to buy them. The pink one was the fondant that we made, and that's only pennies to make that one. Now moving on to another option, there are molds that you can buy. They're silicone molds, and we have a ball of yellow fondant in a flower mold. I'm going to show you how you do that. Basically, here's the finished flower, and you simply take a small ball of the fondant, and the tendency is to get too much fondant, but it's okay because what you do is press it in, and then you use this little spatula to cut off the excess. The spatula, again, can be purchased at your craft store. And we're going to pull it out, and there's your finished little flower. How easy is that? Now we're going to do a leaf for you, and because the mold is green, Here's a finished leaf. We're going to do it in purple so that you can see it better against the green mold. Again, you simply push the fondant, and you can, by the way, you can use almond paste, which is marzipan, or you can use gum paste to do the same thing. Peel it out, and there's your flower, your leaf. How simple, how simple.
The cupcakes that we're decorating today are frosted with a buttercream fondant that we have on one of our other videos. We'll show you how to do that. We're all ready to decorate with our roses. To begin with, let's use the purchased roses on one of the cupcakes so you can see how you can do that with some of our pre-made leaves. Sometimes you need to loosen the fondant a little bit to press them in, because these store-bought ones are very, they're hard. They're hard, so you don't want them to break.
So you must make a little hole in the fondant.
Yes, I do. I make a little hole in there so that they'll set in there without falling off. So I'm going to put 3 of them in there, make it look as gorgeous as possible. We'll see what happens when I don't make that little hole. I wanted to show you that. So let's make the little hole, get it in there. Now I'm going to take some of my leaves and put that in around, decorate our roses. You can put as many in as you like. Now remember, this is where your creativity comes in. We've got a gorgeous cupcake. Now let's use the roses that we made. You can see it has a long shank. We're going to cut some of that shank off. It's just too much. But again, that helped support our rose initially. Going to make a little indentation in the fondant, and we're going to stick our rose in. We're going to put 3 roses in this one also. Cut off a little bit of the shank. If you cut off too much of the shank, you'll lose your petals. So be very careful when you do that. This is a very large rose, large shank, cutting off at least a half of that. And we're going to decorate with some of our pre-made leaves. These are our completed cupcakes. Whoops, as we lose a leaf, that's why you do make a little indentation.
Here we have 2 cupcakes that we have decorated using the molds that we mentioned to you earlier. We have the fern leaves, dragonflies, and butterflies. These are, remember, so simple to do if you don't want to shape or form your own flowers or leaves. Okay, so here's our collection of fondant roses and fondant molded flowers, ferns, butterflies, and dragonflies. We hope you have as much fun making these fondant items as we did.